Hey everyone, how's it going? You're watching Kohi Lumpur. In today's video, I wanted to talk about return to office and the two real reasons that companies want people to return to the office that nobody seems to be talking about. I'm also going to share a little tip because if you're one of those people who hates return to office, you're forced to return every day, and you want to do something to push back against these companies without getting fired, well, I have an idea that I'm about to share later in this video, so stay tuned for that. First, let's get those reasons out of the way, because if you talk about return to office to the average Joe, the normies out there, they're going to tell you, well, the reason why companies want people to return to the office is because A, they want to monitor and control people, and B, they've been renting these offices that have been vacant since the start of COVID-19, and they can't be paying rent for the entire time while the offices are empty. That's why they're forcing people to go back to the office. That might be true. That's only half credit though, because a lot of people are missing the other half that is unspoken about, because you really need to do some research and use some brain cells to figure out what it is that they're not saying, the real reasons why they want you to return to the office. Let's get the first thing out of the way first. Monitoring and controlling employees. This one is a pretty straightforward one because we literally had the largest worldwide A/B test between remote work versus in-office work back in 2020 to 2021. 2022 for some countries that are in Singapore, where you have companies trying to force people back to work the moment they get the vaccine. If you really wanted to push for productivity, and if return to office was really about getting employees to be more productive, they could have easily just let everyone work remotely, because when you're working remotely, there's a lot fewer opportunities for people to get ahead through means other than productivity. It's a lot more difficult to kiss ass. It's a lot more difficult to make small talk and, rub shoulders with the right people in the office pantry. It's a lot harder to pretend that you're doing work, because if you're just a face at the other end of the webcam, and you're speaking with your team, your colleagues, your coworkers, your manager, upper management, the only thing that they have to measure you by is by the work that you're doing or the work that you're not doing. So if it really was about productivity, they wouldn't be pushing people to return to the office. So monitoring and controlling employees, that's really kind of the answer, but at the same time, there's a longer answer to that's too long for this video. What I really want to focus on is the second half of that typical response, which is companies have been renting offices and they've been empty and they want them filled up. And this makes sense, but people are missing out the other unspoken half, which is the incentive structure for companies to bring employees back to the office. Now, you see, a year ago, I made a video on Amazon, who was at the time pushing for 5 days a week return to office, up from 3 days a week that they started mandating in 2023. And in that video, I actually covered these different cities in the US, which were offering literally millions of dollars in grants, in tax incentives, tax credits, all sorts of financial benefits like workforce training grants, whatever the fuck that means, and property tax abatement, literally in the billions, just to have Amazon, potentially choose their city. So all of these cities were like, pick me, I'm gonna give you billions of dollars in tax grants and tax incentives, and you don't need to pay your property tax. We'll give all these different financial incentives for you. Just open your office here. These companies aren't gonna rent these offices to get these tax incentives only to have employees stay at home. I think that's pretty obvious, I hope. They're gonna make you return to the office. But it's not just about the office itself, whose land that they've purchased or rented or whatever. It's also about the businesses that exist outside of the office in the surrounding areas. You see, when people return to the office, they also do something else. Can you guess what that is? Think about it. It's something that people start doing about 12 in the afternoon to about 1 or 2 p.m. They go out to lunch. That's right. They go to the office, and they're not just sitting in the office the entire time. They're spending money in the surrounding businesses where their office is at. That is part of the reason that these cities are trying to get companies like Amazon to set up shop where they are. They're giving these incentives in hopes that Amazon or AT&T or these other companies, like Walmart, I think is another one, will also create the rest of the economy outside of the office environment. Now, you might think, well, this is a US thing, which is technically true because I did a little search and I haven't been able to find information on any cities or states outside of the US at least publicly endorsing and trying to give these various financial tax benefits to companies to either set up shop or continue to maintain their shop in their cities. But if you use a little bit of your brain cells, you take a look at a place like Singapore, which is extremely pro-business, right? To the point where employees have employee rights, but you ask any local and they'll tell you employees don't have rights. The laws are just there, just for show. But when you try to enforce those employee rights, they usually get thrown out for most people in white collar. And if they do have a case somehow, it isn't financially worth it for them to go ahead in court because the potential that they could of compensation that they could be awarded usually might be outweighed by the legal fees that they have to pay their lawyer. So if you look at countries and cities like Singapore and also places like Hong Kong, London, maybe even Melbourne in Australia, how is it that all these cities have simultaneously had a concurrent push towards return to office by both big and small companies? I'm not saying that it's a certainty, but I'm just saying that there's a non-0% chance that one or more of these cities outside of the US likely have some sort of tax incentives / financial benefits / grants / other incentives that they may have in a list that's not publicly accessible that they might be bringing to closed door meetings with companies in order for them to get their employees back to the office 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. There's a non-0% chance. Now, this is just kind of speculation at this point, but it's intelligent speculation because if there's cities that are doing this in the US, this is something that other places outside of the US are going to quickly pick up on. And if you're talking about like smaller countries, like between like, let's say Thailand versus Malaysia versus Indonesia, for example, I'm going to give these three countries because they have kind of similar economic GDP and whatever economic indicators that you have. And what's going to make a company, aside from just pure wages, want to set up shop in one country compared to the other? How does one country get that business to pick them over the country that's, literally neighboring them across the border? What do they have to do to attract those people into their country? Now that actually brings me to the method for which you can push back against return to office even though you're forced to go every single day. Because a lot of people hate going to the office, but they're dragging themselves to the office every day because they don't want to get fired, they don't want to lose their job, and they're just complaining about this to their friends or family and whatever every single chance that they get. I've been one of the people that has received a lot of such complaints from within my social circle. So I'm going to give you a quick tip over here as to how you can push back. And it's simple. Stop supporting the businesses around the vicinity of your office. That's right. Bring your own lunch or fast if you have to. Fasting is something that I got into earlier this year. I've been doing it for 20 hours straight, meaning that I usually eat at about 4 or 5 p.m. and then I stop eating by 8 p.m. and then I just don't eat until the next day at about 4 or 5 again. I do it for dietary reasons. I'm just trying to lose some weight, to be honest. But you can do it too. And a lot of people are going to be like, that's crazy. I cannot eat for 20 hours. Even the 16-8 intermittent fasting is too hard. Let me tell you something that got me into this, because I wasn't doing the 16-8 before I started fasting 20 hours a day. In fact, I was fucking failing at doing the 16-8. There was this one doctor that I saw on YouTube. He's a real doctor in Florida. His name is Dr. Jamnadas. He's an Indian guy who moved to America. Jamnadas. I'm going to include a screenshot in this video. The thing that blew my mind about fasting is when he started talking about it. And one of the things that he said was the feeling of hunger at, 36 hours or 72 hours isn't any different from the feeling of hunger that you get 3 hours after eating lunch and your mouth is just kind of itchy and you just want to have a tea time snack. That's what got me into fasting. So look that up, maybe do some research, see if that's for you. The bottom line is you got to stop patronizing the businesses around your office, whether that's a restaurant that you go to for lunch, a supermarket that you go buy snacks from. I know all supermarkets sell almost the same thing, but you can go to your local supermarket where nearer to where you live, go buy the stuff and then bring it to the office. Don't contribute to the statistics, the revenue numbers of businesses surrounding your office. That's how you can make a change. And how do you make a change, you might say, because you're just one person. Well, that's the problem with a lot of people, especially in Asia, is because they have this mindset that they're just one person. Well, I can tell you that you're not alone, and there's a lot of people who feel the exact same way that you do. And if they knew about this, they would do it too. And that's why I'm making a video like this in hopes to get that awareness out as to why companies really want people to return to the office. And I'm hoping that more people would realize how they can push back in a way that doesn't involve like writing to their manager and saying that I hate returning to the office. And then their manager says, well, I'm just a manager here. I don't really have any power over that. Like, it doesn't fucking work. And obviously, not going to the office isn't really going to work for a lot of people because that's like a one-way easy ticket for you to get fired. So what other ways are there? Just boycott the businesses that your company may or may not be directly compelled to support via various city incentives and tax structures. That's it for today, and I hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. Goodbye.